when, because of sitting down for too long, and just sort of getting stiff, turning fossilizing kind of, right? Then the joints don't have that same flexibility. And then doing that stretch out and lengthening and just pausing and then lengthening and just letting the weight, right? And then it was like I had flippers on. I was just like, flip, flip, flip. Oh, that's movement. Hello, I remember you.
Flippers. Oh, like swimming. I'm like, huh?
Like a sea lion's flippers,
No, but if you say so, absolutely.
Super flexible, super
We'll come back to that.
Of movement.
So in today's episode, Dr. Z and I, we're going to talk a little bit about the flexibility and alignment, and it hits home to you because just yesterday we did a kinetic chain screening and we realized parts of your body were so tight that it kept you from activating muscles, even though you were, I'm going to say attempting with love, you were attempting to exercise and it really wasn't activating that. And that gets me to, like, I do the booty blaster challenge a couple of times throughout the month and people are like, man, Esteban, I do these booty exercises, but I never feel it like when I join your challenge, and I never see the difference like when I'm doing that. And that's because there's so many times we're attempting to do a movement and there's restriction with some of the other stabilizing joints. We'll get into that in a second.
Yeah.
If it's okay with you, I have a question for you.
Yeah, of course.
All right. So diatomaceous earth.
Yeah.
It's, if you didn't watch our episode or listen to our podcast a few weeks back, I had asked Dr. Z on, it's getting to be that season where my dogs are having the fleas and the ticks. And I was asking, like, what's the best poison or thing to put on them? And what was your response?
Well, the best poison is no poison. We want to get rid of those toxins because they're just going to create massive inflammation, overburdening of the organs of the body, accelerate that aging, and potentially do very serious harm with no warning at all. So let's get rid of those toxins once and for all.
Let me pause there for a second, because I've got two follow-up questions with that.
Yeah.
And,
okay.
So listening and watching, there was a solution that was non-toxic. We'll get to that in a second. My first question is, I mentioned that to a family member, and her response was, we've been doing that to our dogs for years, and it seems to be okay. Tell me when somebody responds to you that way. Your face is saying it all. I love it.
Yeah, because that's the myth that we buy into, because if we don't, in the absence of seeing evidence, we're not believing that something is happening, but we can't see literally the inside. I cannot temporarily remove your dog's liver and show you what it looks like and then put it back again and it'll be hunky-dory, and then you can go, oh yeah, I could see that it was shriveled and it had acid burns in it. It was covered in a layer of fat that was basically slime, and right, you can't see that. So you think everything's cool. And it's a good sign that your dog has that kind of resilience to be able to have the immune system and the vitality to fight something off, right? But it's like Russian roulette. You don't know which chamber's got the bullet in it. You literally don't know how many chances you get to survive it before it hits. And do you want to take that risk with your dog? Because I sure don't.
Yeah. So it's like I'm poisoning my dog and hoping that the poison is just enough to kill the parasites on the dog and not my dog or permanent damage.
Right. And here's the thing, right? Those, to get poisoned by the medicine, the flea or the tick has to bite your dog. So are you stopping them getting on the body? No. Are you stopping them from biting them? No. Are you stopping them from transmitting a disease like Lyme's disease from the tick to the dog? No. What are you doing? You're killing the flea or tick once it has bitten your dog. That does not sound like a smart thing. And along the way, you're putting massive toxins inside your dog, which can cross the blood-brain barrier. And here's the problem. Once it gets in there, it doesn't come out there. And what does this drug do? It's designed to break away and explode fat cells. What do you think your brain's made out of? Right? So it gets in the brain, it's now stuck in the brain, it can't get out, yet it's still an active ingredient. Like 1,000 explosions are going off in your brain as those cells are going. No wonder they have seizures. No wonder they have neurological disorders as a result of this. No wonder then some literally will die within 24 hours of the drug. And you don't know if it's going to be this time that you do it or in 5 times that you do it. But just don't do it.
So I want to flip species.
Yeah. Because that was dark. Sorry. But it's real.
And it's real. I mean, it is real. And so I'll get that on the human side of, but I feel okay eating these poisons, you know, what some people will call foods, or these are my sweets. These are the things that I indulge in. Poison is poison is poison. Just because it's chronic and you've gotten used to feeling that way doesn't mean it's not causing damage to your body. Oh, you're on pharmaceuticals, so that means you're not at optimal movement, health, energy. So you need the pharmaceutical to kind of kick in to offset the damage the poisons have been doing. Where I want to go with you is spraying poison on the skin. Not only the fleas and ticks, but mosquitoes also. What can you say to that, depending on, you know, it's the off is the popular brand in the United States.
All right. So just the skin is a two-way organ, right? You get rid of things through the skin. It's part of the detoxing system. You're exuding things, like in your sweat. Nobody goes around licking your sweat, right? Because there's a whole bunch of toxins in there. It's grim. You want to wash that stuff off. But things absorb as well. So when we put essential oils on animals, for example, if we're treating a horse, we would never do this to a cat because you can't put them topically for a cat. But for a horse, you can put the oils on directly. And if the oil is needed in the body, if the oil is going to act medicinally, it gets soaked in straight away. The body's looking for that. They want that. It needs those compounds. In it goes. If it doesn't want it, it's going to try and sort of pool on the surface because the body doesn't want it, right? So if you're trying to put something on the skin that the body doesn't want, it doesn't want to take it. But some of it is still going to get in. So your body's already trying to mount a defense against it, right? But it's going to still go in because your skin is not a sheet of iron, right? It's got pores. And so now it's in your system. It goes straight into your blood supply. Well, where does that go? Well, that goes to every single part of your body. So you just don't even know where it's going to end up and start doing the damage.
So I want all of us listening to this and watching this, think twice before spraying those poisons on your body, because it is being absorbed. And
that's the same with all your cosmetics and beauty products and stuff like that. Like women are exposed to way more topical toxins than men as a general rule because of the amount of body products and beauty agents and things that we're using that haven't been declared clean, that aren't seen by the body as nourishing, but they're seen as as a toxin.
Which is a quick pathway to heavy metal toxicity.
Right. Which also gets in the brain.
We get to talk about that one. Yep. I'm like, well, we'll bring in 1 or 2 specialists to help out with that one too. Love that. So good. Thank you for that. So I don't put a poison. What do?
You use natural products, right? Because at the end of the day, everything, the circle of life has a predator and a prey for just about for literally everything, right? So out in nature, you can use things like nematodes, which are a predating worm that will eat up the larvae of the ticks and fleas and stuff like that, right? So you can use it, but on yourself, you can use something that will cause damage to those creatures. Diatomaceous earth will do exactly that, and it's completely benign. It's 100% safe for your dog to have on their fur, to have touching their skin, to be ingesting through grooming or anything else. There is it's a natural product that has no negative effect for the animals.
So repeat that one more time. What's it called?
It's called diatomaceous earth, and it looks like a gray clay.
Diatomaceous earth. So I, for the first time, saw it at a store I went to yesterday in the garden section.
Yeah.
Because I was never aware of it, so I wasn't looking for it. And I noticed that there were some warnings on that one. And then what I ordered was it stated on their food grade, because that's what you had mentioned. Yes. So if you can talk a little bit about the difference there.
So there's multiple types of diatomaceous earth that you can use. Some is used in pool cleaning, for example, or for hens to dust bathe. And it's fine for a hen to dust bathe in that and put it under their wings and and get rid of the dust mites and things like that, because the hen doesn't then get their tongue out and start grooming. but your dog or cat will. So we want to choose the food grade version of that can be used for getting rid of intestinal worms. That's why we call it food grade. It's not a food, but it does work as a detoxing agent. It's actually really high in silica as well. So if you've got problems with your connective tissues and joints, then eating it as a supplement is very powerful because it's got so much silica to rebuild those joints. But it will kill the internal parasites. So that version of it is safe to use externally on your pets because sooner or later they will groom and ingest it.
Yeah. So how would I put it on my pet?
Literally shake it on like a pepper pot and then just massage it in so it's not just sitting on the top of the fur because of course your dog's going to shake, right? And so then it's all going to fly off. So if you want to sort of mush it in a little bit into the fur so that then when that flea or tick is trying to walk through the forest, because that's what it looks like from their perspective, right? They're just getting brushed with the dust everywhere and then they will die.
So
they don't even have to eat it.
What's the process? Here goes this tick and they're getting that diatomaceous earth on them. Mm-hmm. And you had mentioned it's not a poison to them per se.
No, they don't eat it.
So how is it that it kills them?
It touches them and they wear their skeleton on the outside. They're an invertebrate, so they don't have that backbone the way we do. Their skeleton is on the outside. It's called chitin. It's that, you see the shell of a beetle and you can sort of tap your nail on it, right? That is what gets burned open by the diatomaceous earth. It's acidic to chitin, and so it'll burn a hole in the outside of the tick's little protective head armor and leg armor and everything else, and the tick will dehydrate, lose all its moisture relatively quickly, right? And just be dead. No poisoning, but just dead.
Like I say, it seems to increase effectiveness. Like it's faster. That's my perception. I don't have to wait for this tick or this flea to actually bite my animal. As long as it's walking through the fur, boom, it's gone.
And it will kill the whole life cycle too, right? So an egg that's being laid by a tick or a flea, right, isn't going to start eating anything, right? It's in an egg. It hasn't hatched yet. However, with the diatomaceous earth, that will burn holes through the eggshell as well, right? It's not an eggshell the way we think of an eggshell with hens, but it's still got like a covering over it, right? And then the tick hatches, right? So that is killed as well. So you kill that stage, you kill the larvae stage, you kill the adult stage, no more babies, no more ticks, no more anything, job done. Whereas the poison one that you have to drink the dog's blood that's got the poison in it, like it's like you're gonna have to poison your dog's blood to feed a tick a poison drink so the tick dies. I mean, it's just mental.
That's a good visual. That really is. It's like, okay, I have to poison the blood so when the parasite drinks it, they die from it.
Right.
And the egg, and I hadn't thought about it, I never went this in depth into it. The egg is not going to be poisoned because it hasn't drank the blood yet.
Correct. So it'll hatch and you'll still have fleas coming out. So now you got to wait for them to bite your dog again before you solve the.
So when you think that I put this little droplet poison, whatever, in the back of their neck, it's like, oh, it's gonna take care of all the parasites. No, only the parasites that it bites. So it's like, man, I've had them on this front line for a week, 2 weeks, and they're still getting fleas, they're still getting ticks because those eggs are still alive. So
right. It's not repelling them from getting on your dog or cat, right? If you want to repel, you use things like garlic oil and neem oil and lemongrass and citronella and all these oils that have a repelling effect. You can use a spritzer spray and just do that for your dog. So if you're going to go out in the woods, right, you can either get a bandana and dip the bandana in the oils and put the bandana around the dog's neck, right? So they wear their clothes to repel the insects while you're out and about, or you can spritz your dog over the top. And again, perfectly safe for a dog. Don't do it for a cat. Perfectly safe for a dog to do that and then repel. When you come back from that walk, then maybe in the past you would have pulled 12 ticks off your dog from a walk. Now you should be pulling maybe 1 or 2, right? Wow. So it's done a really great job at repelling, right? And then you've got the diatomaceous earth to catch anybody that snuck through, that missed the, and then you get rid of them before they do the damage.
So I want to wrap this session up with 2 final questions. Number 1, why not a cat? You mentioned that twice.
So cats don't eat vegetables, right? They don't eat plant material. They're an obligate carnivore. They can only get their nutrients from fat and protein. So as a result, they don't have amylase. They don't have the digestive enzymes to break down plant material. Essential oils all come from plants and they're super, super concentrated. So for a cat to receive an essential oil where it goes inside their body, that would act as a toxin for them because they can't break those molecules down and digest them out of their body. So a dog and a dog and a horse can, for example, because the horse is a herbivore and the dog is a carnivore, but it's a facultative carnivore. So it means it can eat plant material and get value from it. Therefore, it has the enzymes to break it down. So we can use inhalation on a cat to breathe in and receive medicinal value, but we can't give it internally.
So cool. Then the last thing I've got is you talked about repelling. So I've got these essential oils that we know will repel the insects. Because it's repelling the insects. Is that a safer way for humans as well, is using those essential oils?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, and you can use them as diffusers. You can put them in your nighttime lanterns outside on your porch or in the garden to keep the mozzies away at nighttime. You can use them on your skin. I mean, that there is part of my travel kit, right? It's chock full of oils and a bunch of other stuff. I literally don't go anywhere without them because they're medicine. They are, I mean, they're everything, and they're safe for, as I said, they're safe for every species. You just have to know how to administer. So they're safe for cats too, right? But you just have to know how to administer.
Got it. So I can use that on my skin instead of poison on my skin to repel these.
You can. Yeah, you probably want to carrier oil. So you'd use fractionated coconut oil or jojoba's oil, really good for skin, almond oil, olive oil, whatever you want, right? And use that as a carrier oil. So you're not having, full concentration on your skin, because one, it's really volatile. Like these molecules are so active, they'll disappear very quickly. Right. And you'd use an awful lot of it if you're doing it just straight. So you use it as a carrier oil, has the same effect. You don't need to do overkill to get that effect. And now you're moisturizing your skin, adding value to your skin, putting healthy things into your skin at the same time as having that repelling effect. So again, natural products usually give you a 2-for-1 or a 10-for-1, just because they're the gift that keep on giving, as opposed to the toxins that just are, death in a bottle.
Kill you. Death in the bottle. Okay, we get to avoid that one. So we'll do some follow-up notes on this, because inquiring minds want to know, okay, what's the concoction for the repelling? So awesome. You had a question for me, transitioning to humans now.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's this alignment idea. Like, I know about alignment for pets in terms of we need to have their musculoskeletal structure straight. We need to see a chiropractor. We need to make sure the weight is distributed on the front paws, right? There's a bunch of stuff. But when it comes to human alignment and how the muscles are working all the way up on a vertical body as opposed to on a horizontal body, right? Because that's a little bit different. So I just want to know, just tell me things. I don't have a one specific question, but it's like, I know the healing power of correcting an alignment and what that will do to mitigate pain in the animals. And I'm realizing through our coaching that is possible for me as well. And it's like, okay, I want to know how and why.
Yep. Oh, so there's so many different ways that we can go with this. The one thing I'll mention is stability of the core, the spine. No human movement happens without the core stabilizing first. So you think, if I'm standing on ice and I go to reach down to grab a grocery bag, grab a dog, grab my computer bag, I slide and I kind of fall and lose my balance, and I don't have the ability to really activate the muscles and the movement. Yesterday we talked about primal movements for that. So that's where the core muscles kick in. They stabilize the spine, and then there's ground reactive forces, meaning I'm typically going to be standing on the ground and I stabilize myself maybe more on one side versus the other, but the spine's got to be stable. That's first and foremost. So when we talk about the benefits of core training, that's the thing. On a neurological level, I've got to stabilize my spine. So the stronger the activation is for that, then so we've got upper neurons and the lower neurons. So the brain will kind of dictate what happens, and I'm not even talking about gut health. So that's a whole different one, but will dictate that the movement of the muscle comes down to spinal cord, and from the spinal cord goes out to the musculature. If the spine is not stable, those neurons that go out are minimized. So a lot of times you can see this by grabbing a weight and holding it off to the side. And if you've got a wide stance, you're like, oh, I'm stable, I can hold on to a lot of weight. All of a sudden you lift up the one foot I can't lift up that same amount of weight. So what happens is those neurons are going in to stabilize the core, your spine, versus the neurons going out to the muscular system. So, or the extended muscle, you've got your inner core and then outer core and then extreme joints and muscles, which is really cool. In your case, what ended up happening was you're doing one of the primal movements. We were doing a squat pattern, and we identified that, to put it nicely, you were jacked. I forgot about the microphone. I got to get close to here. And your joints were just not moving in a way that was supportive to activate your muscles, and potentially you could create injury. So this is one of the things that I see with individuals that do exercise. If they're out of alignment, their joints aren't stabilized. There's high risk of damaging that joint structure, whether it's a tendon, whether it's a ligament, whatever the case may be within that variable. So what we did with you was, and it was so cool that just visually you can see it within seconds, literally seconds, I removed one of your joint mechanics. So you think about what are all of the joint actions from the ground, even the toes gripping all the way up to the top of your head, and something we call proprioceptors. So you've got those neurons firing in all of the muscles, from my calf muscles, my hamstrings, my quads, my adductor, my abductor, all of my core muscles, inner and outer oblique, QL, just to stabilize my spine. And your joints weren't allowing that range of motion. In your case, it was dorsiflexion. Plantar flexion was there, but dorsiflexion in the ankle. So we shifted you a little bit, and this is where I'll see people, they'll put platforms underneath their heels in the gym, which could cause massive knee injuries. What ends up happening is that's a shortcut for people that don't have flexible or they don't have that ideal range of motion in their calves or the subtalar joint, the ankle. So what they do is they raise up their heels, put a crap ton of load on their shoulders, and they go to squat, and it's putting a ridiculous amount of shear pressure on the knees. Instead of being able to sit back and take the load on the glutes, which is the way our human body's been designed, that shear load is going towards the knees. So I see it all the time, like on Instagram, and people send me the TikTok, and I'm like, that's okay for lightweight, but putting heavy load, you truly jeopardizing the stability and the structure of the knee joint specifically for that.
So the alignment really starts at the ground and works its way up, or?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So if we're doing primal type movement, the answer is yes, because we do ground reactive forces. When I walk, I'm pushing from one foot off of the ground. If the ground isn't there, it's like if I'm in water, that's irrelevant. So if I'm in a chair, that could also be irrelevant. So this is where a lot of the flexibility has shifted over the last 20 plus years, where most of what we do is we sit in front of a computer, I'll hunch down, so my alignment is off. And this is where I highly suggest seeing a good physical therapist and chiropractor to get that cervical alignment, and then all the way down to the lumbar, get the thoracic, the whole spine in ideal alignment. So we're not pinching any nerves, we're not pinching any blood vessels, we're not pinching any from the nerves to the blood, not allowing proper nutrients going in, the joints slightly out of socket. It sucks. So yes, now I think, okay, am I out of alignment on a ground reactive movement, or am I out of alignment because I lay down for my job, because I sit down for my job? So I'm anteriorly tight. So most of us are anteriorly tight because that's our work. So when you're doing exercise, what I would have you do is I would have you do posterior exercises, because the posterior side has been overstretched. So let's tighten it back up. Let's bring it back to neutral. And then I would focus predominantly on anteriorly stretching. So it comes down to, what do you do for a living? A lot of females will wear pumps and heels so that dorsiflexion doesn't happen. So that's where I would incorporate doing calf stretches on a regular basis, so that you're able to go through that full plantar and dorsiflexion.
And then with that high heel situation over a long period of time, and that tightness then down in the ankle and the calf. So that's shortening effectively, which is
Correct.
then straining on the hip and causing the hip to have to pull under, or is it's changing
There's that length tension relationship, and it's being shortened. And for primal survival, our eyeballs want to stay horizontal. And you think about it when you're riding a bicycle, and if I lean to the left, my neck turns to the right, so my eyeballs are horizontal. If I lean to the right, my eyeballs flip the other way. Those of you young kids that haven't ridden a bike, when you lean, how about that? I just think about that. I'm like, go ride a freaking bike. Don't come home until the lights come on. Ta-da. So what ends up happening is my eyeballs want to stay horizontal. So if I am tight and I don't have that proper range of motion on one of the joints, everything going up from the ground or from that tightness all the way up to horizontal stability adjusts. So I could have one shoulder way off, but my head's still going to be there, so my eyeballs are horizontal.
Right.
I can lean way forward and my chin's going to go up, so my head's horizontal. I can lean way back and my chin's going to drop down, so the eyeballs are horizontal. So everything is shifting. We have that internal gimbal, for those that little gyrocopters. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, this is cool. I mean, it's making me think of a kestrel who can just hover in the air, and they're actually not hovering because birds can't hover. They're not a helicopter. They've got their wings, but they're flying into the wind and matching exactly. And there's a whole lot of movement all the way through the body. The tail's doing a whole bunch of ruddery things to hold, but that head is rock solid. It does not move. And they're looking down because they're looking for prey, right?
Yeah.
But it does not move. And what you're describing, okay, I'm seeing that, like the head we're doing. And I'm thinking, what about with aerials and things? I did a lot of aerial stuff as a trapeze artist, as a gymnast, and in skiing, right? So now my head is clearly going to be moving, right? Because I'm doing aerial work. What happens at that point with this balancing?
So then second would be vestibular. So inner ear. And this is where more common the longer we live. People fall into the term, oh, it's because you're getting old. So like, no, it's because I live longer, which means that there's a higher probability that I've had damage done to me because I lived one extra day. So a lot of times when people have a balance issue, they look for inner ear, vestibular. It's are my bones in place where they need to be? So that would be the second phase down. First is visual, second is vestibular. Third would be motor neurons. So that would be if I close my eyes and I'm feel like a cat does with the whiskers. My toes are gripping all over the ground. My arms are moving, and the nervous system, the muscular system's attempting to stabilize against whatever vector force, whether it's the wind, whether it's gravity, whether it's rotation. So our body's so brilliant and using all of that data in milliseconds, and then all these neurons are firing for that. But that would be the case. Once my eyeballs are gone, what's going on? And that typically is a movement pattern versus a stable pattern. Rarely do we have to kick or rely heavy on that, unless you're blind, outside of moving to where your eyeballs are in different places.
So tell me why walking or running on sand is so amazing, or is that a myth? Like,
your body has to do a lot more. So if I'm on solid ground, that's one variable that's the same every single time. When I'm on sand, every time your heel strikes, it's different. So as it rolls one way or another, all those neurons are firing on, I've got to stabilize quick. The object and the goal is not to fall. So it's activating so many muscles just to stay stable. And it's like, man, I'm really sore whenever I walk or I run on the sand. 100%, absolutely. Because every step is completely different. You're going from stable environment to an unstable environment, and the body wants to create horizontal with the eyeballs. So yeah, you're producing a lot more work. It's awesome. So
this is a really good thing, because I've been told it's a great thing. I love doing it, but I'm now thinking, okay, so it's because the stabilization. What's happening to my muscles? Like so the neurons are firing to keep me upright, right? Because you
Yep.
want to fall over. But what are the muscles doing?
So, and that's a whole thing. So the muscles are firing in different sequences to stabilize. It's like, oh, we got to pull more. No, now we have to pull more. No, now we've got to pull more. We've got to pull and we've got to hold while this one's firing and relaxing and firing and relaxing. And the pattern's constantly different. So the human body wants to conserve energy. So it wants to repeat the most common movement over and over and over. And it actually happens even with behavior, with habits, because I'm going to live longer, the less energy I have to rely on or have to use. So what ends up happening is, because the environment is different with every step, it's using so many calories. And so, those neurons, those motor neurons, for that reason, you're stressing the muscles at a higher level. You're using energy, calories at a much higher percentage than you would on a stable surface. So unless you live in a high performance state, unless you live where you're constantly utilizing a lot of energy, for those of us that are sedentary, it's excellent to add. Besides that, it's just cool. I mean, it just feels good too.
Yeah. And we give a lot of our animals sand to walk on to protect them, because they're not designed to walk on concrete. Their legs and knees and feet, paws, hooves.
Yeah.
Not a good match.
So that strength will, to mention that the strength, the stress actually strengthens the stabilizers in the joints as well. Because a lot of times, I have knee pain, so let me build the muscles around it. Well, the muscles aren't just the main joint movers, but also the stabilizing activation of those muscles. So the more we walk on sand, it's not massive stress on the body, but it's enough to stimulate the stabilizing firing sequence of the muscles.
So final question then, because this is making me think, okay, so hormesis, right? So this sounds like it's hormetic to every step is a challenge. Every step is different than the one before in terms of what the body is feeling like it needs to do. Do we develop do we become used to that, or can we just keep on walking on sand and keep on running on sand and it's always hormetic? Or do we hit a point where it's like, yeah, no, the body's got that wrapped up, now you better try something else?
It's both. It's you and I could walk on solid ground, and we've done it enough times that when we walk for 5 or 10 minutes, it's not that big of a deal as it was when we were 1 or 2 years old, because we've done it so many times. However, going from a 10-minute walk to a 10-hour walk, that's a lot of stress on the body. So similar situation with walking on sand is your nervous system and the adaptation phase increases. So I'm adapting at a faster rate today than I did a year ago when I first started to walk on sand. And that's going to be for everything. So you'll see some individuals that you just flat out say, they're just athletic. They pick up fast on everything. Yes, they do, because they've constantly trained their body and put their bodies in a high stress situation. So the way the nervous system responds is at a hyper responsive state to that's a sedentary individual. So yes, your body could get used to it to a certain extent. And then there's a rate of exhaustion, which in the tone up challenge, we covered a little bit of that yesterday on the different types of fibers that we have and the endurance that each of those fibers have. So yes, I get to talk from both sides of my mouth for that one. Yes, I get adaptive to it. And yes, there's a phase where your body will get exhausted, and there's a new adaptation phase.
Amazing. So it sounds like I should move to the beach again and do more of that, because it's just no downside.
So those of you guys wanting to hire Dr. Z, if you live on a beach, you'll be put to the top of the list.
There you go. That is so true. Actually, don't tell anyone else though.
I was like, I've got 4 clients that want me to work privately with them who lives on the beach. You happen to be next in line.
Just like that.
You know what? I'll put that out there also. So when you're looking for human performance, if you live on the beach, you're gonna get booted to the front of the line.
Instant VIP.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for coming on here. And
thanks for answering my questions
and listening to the audio. Leave us a comment. let us know what you want to know from Dr. Z or from me, and we'll love to respond to that. See you guys next time.